Warning! The podcast you're about to hear is purely for entertainment purposes. The content shared is not a form of advice, and applying any of the information in real life is done solely at your own risk. The individuals featured in this episode take no responsibility for the consequences of using these materials in practice. If that's a problem for you, feel free to skip it, although you'll probably regret it.
This podcast is created for you and thanks to you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do leave the comment and share this episode for bumping up the algorithm. If you found something valuable for you here and you wanted to support me and this channel while also needing the highest quality peptides and supplements, maybe an awesome sports bag, or just simply wanted to fuel your mind with some good nootropic coffee, please support me by using my discount codes. The links and the codes you can find in the description down below. I also highly encourage you to check out my shop for awesome t-shirts like this, some shakers like this, and for awesome wristbands. Thank you for watching, and let's get back to the content. Hello everyone, and welcome in another English One podcast. Today's guest is a special one because it's not outside of the Europe guy this time. It is Fabian Habber from Germany, if I'm correct.
That's correct. Thank you, Dawid. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great that I can finally manage an English One podcast with someone who's in the same time zone as me. So it's easier to set up. But
definitely.
How are you, brother? Because like I said, just before I click the record, I am not really much familiar because you are like with your style of coaching. So I am more than happy to hear about your everything about your coaching from you. And first of all, how are you overall?
Overall, I'm doing well. So times have been quite busy, but I mean, more or less the amateur season just ended, so it's a bit less of traveling, it's a bit less of action with the athletes. I mean, of course, there's always some other business stuff going on. So I've been quite busy and I've kept busy, but overall, I'm doing well. I'm happy and I'm very, very excited for the topics today.
Great. So I know that we have just 1 hour because you, like I said, you're a busy man. So I'm not going to waste the time because everyone's just want to know and just stole some knowledge from you. So I'm going to just put you in some sort of scenario. That says that I am your new client. I'm weighing about 102 kilos. So it's probably around 220 something in English. Although those guys can just calculate it by themselves, but let's say that I just competed in like a heavyweight classes, and we wanted to push me into an open class. So, what are the first thing you wanted to know from me as I am your new client? So, what's the setup for the beginning?
Very exciting podcast approach. I never did that. That's cool. No, I mean, for me, coming out of the competition season, it's definitely blood work first. So that's first and foremost what I want to understand and to see if there is anything new. Because I think, I mean, if we look at the immediate phase after competition, especially as an advanced competitor, and let's say you're really a solid heavyweight competitor, you're experienced, I think the first question that comes into mind, I mean, let's start with the whole PED approach, is really, what can we do, or what do we have to pause to keep you healthy, or to get you back to healthy again? I mean, that heavily depends also what has been done during the season. But that would be my first step, actually, just to evaluate health, and based on health to decide how does the cruise phase look like, how long should it be. I'm definitely keen on doing kind of a slower reverse diet. Maybe having an initial bump coming from the lowest calories, maybe giving an initial bump of 15 to 20% upwards just to get you out of the hole. But afterwards, I would always like to keep it more conservative because in the end, you can stop me anytime if you want to. That question already contains so much. I mean, for me, it's really just bringing the body fat out of the, I will call it just death zone, out of the critical zone where also recovery is impaired, and just getting you back to normal. I mean, let's assume I would have done the last weeks of the season. I would have reduced your trainings volume and slightly, not notably, but slightly, and I would keep it lower until you are a bit back up in body fat again. I'm not that keen on doing these phases after competition where you just keep pushing. I mean, if you're in perfect health, the approach can be more aggressive, but that still means for me all the quote-unquote diet drugs have to go out immediately. And I mean, if you're at perfect health, of course, you can be a bit more aggressive in cruise phase. But that's what I would do in the first steps. And training-wise, definitely keep the volume conservative. And I mean, that's also now coming to the really, at least for my job, also important part for the training. I mean, it's also re-evaluation time. It's time to look at the stage picks, and it's time to get clear what to improve.
So let's say that if I am just finished my competition season, but I am by myself do the last 6 to 8 weeks of a health phase. So I'm coming to you.
Okay.
I am in a good body fat level, so like a really good starting point for the off season. As for you, obviously, because the point for everyone can vary. But my health are good. My PEDS right now are just like 350 tests a week, nothing else.
Yeah.
And everything is checked. My thyroid is in check. I am, let's say, taking like 5 IU of GH, and I am maybe supplementing some sort of T3 that's hold me with like a great spot when it comes to the thyroid. Mm-hmm. And my sleep is good, my digestion is good, my mood is good, my energy level is good. For the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've reduced my training volume and get rid of all the intensifiers. So just keep my like a certain nervous system fresh for the start. So I am basically like a brand new athlete that you can mold in your hands. So how did you approach everything? Let's say that for the last 6 years, I was training in a manner of like an English style of top back of sets, heavy duty style of training, like a lower volume, higher intensity.
I mean, I'm not too far away from what you call, or what is generally called, the UK style, most likely. So, I mean, what I would do first, I mean, I would do physique evaluation really comes first, because if there's nothing to be fixed, blood work is good, health, sleep, recovery, nutrition, digestion, okay, we can tick all these boxes. So we have to talk about how do we get you better. And I mean, there is two, I mean, let's assume we will also manage a solid conservative calorie surplus, and we also keep that out of the discussion. Notably, there is 2 leverages where we have to be honest that both are important, and that is increasing the drug load, but first and foremost, getting the most out of your training. And
I was going to ask you like let's get through it. Let's start with how do you set up my training at the beginning? Let's say my chest is shit, my legs are great, my arms are huge, and my overall like a clavicle width is okay, but I need to improve everything around my shoulder. So like,
we have lost more or less chest, shoulders, and somewhat maybe back width or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I mean, that's and that's now the first question if we talk about programming. I mean, I just want to be precise enough also for people hearing the considerations, at least from my side, for the first time. If we talk about weaknesses, we have to talk about their, how do I call that properly in English? We have to see how much work does the weakness need. I mean, we have strong, significant weaknesses and we have slight weaknesses. And now let's just assume we have significant weaknesses in chest and shoulders, and we really have very dominating legs. Because in the end, that's also the question. For example, are the legs a 10 out of 10 and the chest a 7 out of 10? Definitely needs balancing and prioritization, but it's something else if the chest is a 3 out of 10. Then we need to do even more focused work. So focus for me is always coming to the training program. It's increasing frequency, and if possible, I would like to move the needle at least towards 2 times per week. Doesn't have to be exactly 2 times per week can be, for example, also if we have a rotating, let's say let's say we would go with a push-pull legs and we would go to a 3 on 1 off. That's every 4 days, so twice every 8 days, also fine. Just as a rough direction, getting the frequency to 1.5 to 2 times per week, especially for the weak points. Potentially for the legs, it's maybe less. Because for the legs, we can see if I have reduced, also with one pro I have in mind, I have reduced the leg volume notably, sometimes down to even every 14 days, has worked out great. And that's always the question that comes first to my mind. Most people are just thinking about weaknesses and how much can I do to improve them. But the question I try to ask myself is, how much less can we do for the strong muscle groups? Because that's the room we need to ramp up the weaknesses. And if you have really strong legs, I would most likely get you started on legs 1 times per week. And throughout the time, I would maybe try to shift you to 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, and then just see where it's enough. Because it's very individual. And so what I would try, maybe just getting first thoughts out. Let's say we put the back width also in. I would, for example, be inclined to do something like, and I have done that several times, if we look at the whole week, push, pull, off, push, pull, legs, off. One time per week legs. We can start the push day with shoulders and chest. We can start the pull day with all back width stuff, and we have the leg volume reduced 2 times per week, compact push and pull days. That would be most likely my first approach. And if I see that your legs are still dominating, I would maybe move you to push, pull off, push, pull off, push, pull legs off. Then we are at every 10 days. And there I would see how much room can I make.
Great. That's have sense. When it comes to the diet, let's just, for example, right now I'm in a maintenance calories, whatever it is, that says I'm eating around, for my weight, around 300 grams of protein, let's says like 400 grams of carbs and 60 grams of fats in total, accounting from everything. So first of all, just tell me, how much do you like to push your guys in the off season? Do you like to keep them really lean, or do you like to do some sort of like a little bit dirtier bulk when it comes to the guys who need to build a shit ton of muscle? Because I need to jump over the weight class, so remember that.
Yeah, I would still keep it conservative. I mean, there's one deciding factor on how conservative I would keep it, because one thing is clear: one compound that is needed in your off season is GH, and for a 100-kilo competitor, that will be likely more something in the realms of maybe 8 to 12 units of GH per day. And here comes the big question first: how much insulin resistance are you building up with the increases of body weight, of calories, and of GH? And I would say here, the more resilient your body is and the more insulin sensitive your body is staying, even with higher doses of GH, higher doses of calories, you can maybe be a bit more aggressive. But on the other hand, and I have seen these guys, even on very lean levels, still solid activity, maybe 10 to 12K steps, 20 minutes of cardio daily. So really solid baseline activity. You ramp up the calories, you ramp up the GH, blood sugar goes to shit. And that's critical. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not legit to supplement with insulin to a certain degree, but that's something where I would like to end up in the peak phase of an off-season push and not in the initial phases. And I would say the more I see that your insulin sensitivity is reacting bad, the more conservative I would keep it. And generally, I don't see the dirty bulk, because in the end, most athletes, let's say we need to get you up to maybe, let's say 5,000 to 6,000 calories in the off season. I need you to digest it. I need you to digest it, and I need your blood sugar management to be good. And both of that as long as possible. And of course, you can switch to the crutch with insulin right away. But I'm not a big proponent of that. I would like to keep you functional, even on higher levels of GH, as long as possible. And so I would definitely go the lean route. And maybe also, for example, let's say we ramp your calories up. We are going into off season now. You have perfect maintenance calories, And now we go into the push phase. We can talk about the stack at a later point in time. Let's just say we decide to push the GH, the injects, the steroids, and we also push the calories. And now we have your weight increasing. And let's say we pushed up the calories by 10 to 15% via carbs. I want to see you getting at a solid point first where we have the weight solidified. I think it's a big mistake in the off season to insist on seeing the weight moving up constantly. There can be a phase, doesn't have to be forever, maybe 2 to 4 weeks. But on the other hand, I have seen guys that had fucking great reaction on getting the drugs back in and the calories up. And now let's say we ramp you up. Let's say whatever. Let's say we go in after the 350 test and 5 IUs of GH with your example. Let's say we go up to maybe a total load of whatever, exemplary 1.5 grams total, 10 units of GH. Weight goes through the roof, body composition still stays good, you are performing well, blood sugar as well, blood pressure as well, all health markers are green. At some point, before I increase the calories for the next time, even if you're going great, I just want to see your body stabilize. Yeah. Because on the other hand, you get into the Carpathian tunnel syndrome, you have the lower back pumps and so on. And that's why I don't like to rush it too much. There can be phases, especially initially, where the drugs get back in, where it's a bit more aggressive, but I would like to keep it conservative overall.
Yeah, there's some sort of pendulum when it comes to the calories. Guys are not understanding how it goes. I always talk to my guys that it's some sort of snowball effect. It is in both ways, in a calorie deficit and a calorie surplus. When we're adding the calories, there's a period of time when, even if we stop it, there's still some time of raises in our body. And it's the same with the deficit. It's not like we are stop eating today and the way it is next day we are dropping. It is slowly like a pace. So you have to always remember about that. So that's a great approach from you. So how do you count your macros? Because before I ask you about how many grams of protein, carbs and fats, we need to assess how do you count them, because there's a guys who are counting from the like apps, so from everything, and the guys who are counting in the old ways, like from
direct source.
It's only a protein, and rice is only a carbs and stuff like that.
No, I'm counting everything. I'm counting everything. So it's always for me when I have my coaching sheets. There is always a food database, so to say, and as soon as I'm calculating it, it's always all macros for all food choices, because I think it's also the wiser choice.
Okay, great. So how many grams of protein do you like to keep me on when it comes to the adding so much tissue in your season?
I would say it also here, I mean, a lot of stuff when it comes to food, from my thought perspective, will revolve around keeping you hungry is a bit too much, but keeping you at least to a certain degree appetized, let's call it like that, and to keep digestion good. And usually you can see that these two things walk hand in hand. As soon as you have an athlete who gets to an off-season point where food becomes uncomfortable, most of the times you also see digestion quality decreasing. And I want to avoid that. And now it depends for me, how early are you satiated? Maybe you're coming from 3,500 calories or whatever, and maybe you're a person who can eat easily 7,000 calories. In that kind of, I don't say that you have to eat, but you could do it digestion and hunger wise. There I would be a bit more easy with the proteins. I would maybe, coming from a diet scenario where we are at, I mean, you said 300 grams, I would keep it stable throughout the off season, because in the end we have carbohydrates increasing, we have the protein sparing effect of increasing carbohydrates. That means also, at least to a certain degree, the higher the carbohydrates, the less protein you need for the essential functions and also for muscle building purposes. And for those who don't do too well in terms of hunger and digestion, I would go in a peak off-season scenario. I might even go down to maybe 2.5 to 2.8 gram per kilogram, just if the digestion needs some release, and precondition if the carbs are already high.
Oh, okay. So what's the maximum for you when it comes to the protein? Because what from I hear from you, it's like you're rather a low protein guy, very low in the bodybuilding standards.
I would say peak for me is most of the time, also so maybe close to 4 grams per kilogram of body weight, roughly. I mean, is it that? I mean, it's also interesting to hear the outside perspective. Is it, for example, in Poland, is it usual to go way above 4 grams?
In Poland?
Yeah.
No, I think that's like a general rule around here. It's 3 to 3.5 grams. It's like a basal for most of the guys.
Right.
Obviously, those who are serious bodybuilders, because in the fitness industry, there are guys who still thinks that 1.6 grams of protein.
No, I mean, I would say the 2.5 would be also, just to get into the right order, would be an exceptionally low number if I really see that someone is struggling to get their protein sources in, and also to be at least to a certain degree appetized. I would say my average will move around 3 to 3.2 gram maybe. If there's and That's also on the other hand. If I have someone who is exceptionally hungry, I might even increase to 4 gram. That's also fine for me. But from a usability standpoint, from providing a benefit, so to say, I don't see a need to go exceptionally high. And I mean, for me, there's also one thing we need to keep in mind when you're going to super heavyweight, and that is that your waistline doesn't go to shit. And I mean, I don't care if it's great at the moment or if it's just average, if it's always been average or became worse. I mean, you can't catch up. I mean, maybe let's say you're eating a shit ton of food and you're going the old school very high protein way. It's a lot of, let's call it chicken or red meat even. You have a lot of slow digesting foods. You get the bubble gut, so to say, and I mean, to a certain degree, it's normal. Some kind of gut distension when you're eating 6,000 calories is unavoidable. But let's really say, I mean, with a slow digestion speed of some foods, and especially of some protein foods, let's say you gain 2 to 3 centimeters of waistline. You can't catch that up even with a kilogram of muscles on your upper shelf. And so it's also always a compromise of keeping the lines and also keeping the gut control. And so I try to balance that. And so I would say, of course, I'm trying to give out some general numbers, but as you see that I'm going a bit back and forth in the range, it's always, I think that's, I assume you have come with a lot of guests to this conclusion. A qualified answer will be, it depends very often.
Yeah, I don't believe that anyone needs more than 3.5 grams, to be honest, like physiologically, but psychologically, I think many guys need it. Once, like you said, the appetite wise, and the second thing is that sometimes guys think that if they are eating more protein, they are stronger, they are like have better regeneration after the training, like the better quality of sleeps, even sometimes, even though it's probably not true, but but if they do, it's fine for me. It's definitely fine for me as long as they can digest it and they don't have a problem with like shitting themselves like 15 times a day. It's okay for me.
I would be absolutely fine. If those preconditions are met, I would be also absolutely fine to go higher. I mean, I have a good friend who had a client of him asked him, we need a diuretic before the competition, and he knew that the guy didn't need one, and he just gave him a vitamin C tablet and said, okay, here you go with the diazide. And that guy went to bed happy and woke up looking great. I mean, sometimes you also need the illusion, and I mean, also speaking from the experience, I think with PEDs, it's much more tangible. I mean, the genetic expression of a person can vary so much from one to the other that I won't deny that there will be persons out there. There might be the outlier who can benefit from 4 to 4.5 gram. I won't say that these persons don't exist, but I mean, we always have to talk the average.
Yeah. This is why when you ask someone about something, you're not asking about Ronnie Collins.
Yeah.
About average Joes, because we are most likely average Joes, most of us. So when it comes to the fats, because the fats is a huge topic in bodybuilding, especially in like maybe not in Europe, because we here like to keep the fats lower. But maybe you probably noticed that in the United States especially, those guys are going crazy with the fats. Sometimes adding even to the every single meal, like 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil and stuff like that. Like seeing the numbers of 100, 115 and even higher of the fats in the diets of the bodybuilders is nothing unusual. And here in Europe, you see like, for example, oh my God, the Roman Fritz, for example, he is like, I don't know, maybe 15 grams of fats daily, and 10 of them are omegas.
Yeah, so I mean I would say I'm in the middle of the range. I mean I would maybe first I would most likely almost never use fats to push the calorie surplus. I think that just kills the digestion speed again. I would say I'm in the middle. I mean, if I have, for example, if I'm an athlete, I mean, talk an example I had now. Maybe you go to 6,500 calories in the off season for was a 115 kilogram guy. I might end up maybe at 80 to 95 or something like that. But that's then peak off-season number. And for example, if I get into the diet scenario back, and let's say we are at 95, those 95 will get to a 60 or 50 within the first 4 weeks of dieting. And for the fats, I mean, you always have some traces, right? I mean, you go with 200 grams of lean red meat, you're still 8 to 10 gram. You go with the omegas, you go with some oats. Now you already have the 25 gram baseline. And then for me, it's just also some food diversity. I like some olive oil. I like some eggs. I like some sort of nuts in there. And then it's just for me also the fats are more of an open window to diversify the food sources, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I have to say that I am more on the fats right now, because back in the days I was a really low fat guy, but I've noticed that adding a little bit more fats to my guys' diets are helping them with lubrication of the colon, helping them with like a better digestion in overall, because there's a better microbiome with that. And also, like you said, the fats are actually like anti-inflammatory, and most of the guys are not actually like to use a lot of anti-inflammatory like spices, or even something. Sometimes I have to force my guys to use something like berries and stuff like that, because I am a really huge fan of fruits. But there are guys who are eating rice and broccoli, and there's nothing out there. So the fats are maybe just something that helps them even do anything different than, than the rice.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the diet throughout the week, do you like to do some sort of rotation with the calories, some like a basic stuff like training, non-training days, or maybe you do some sort of rotation with mid carb days, lower carb days, and high carb days?
I would say at the moment, at 95% of the cases, it's just differentiation, training day, non-training day. That can vary quite a bit. I mean, I have some cases where the only difference is really just the intra-workout shake, and the rest is exactly the same. So maybe 30 to 50 grams of intra-workout carbs. For other guys, it's maybe a 20% difference or something like that. But usually I would say it's roughly in this realm of having 20% roughly calories more on the training day. For the real calorie cycling, I would say I don't go for it too heavily until I encounter some issues, I would say. So if I see that the guy's, for example, in a diet, he's metabolically becoming very slow, then I might switch from training day and non-training day to just having, for example, let's say the guy has 4 training sessions per week, 2 high sessions, 2 low sessions, and then somewhat in between non-training days. So for really carb cycling, in really terms of going regularly more up and down, it's just if I encounter some challenges with the athlete. Not to say that it doesn't make sense also without having issues, but that's where I use it usually most.
Great. When it comes to the how to say it's like what are the biggest mistakes that you've seen in your guys like diet approaches? Because they're obviously you've gave your athletes plan, but they are humans, so they are doing everything they can. Humans and athletes, that's the worst combination, because the athletes always think that he can do more, and sometimes guys are making like a shitty decisions for themselves. So what are the biggest mistakes that you find out with your guys are they are making?
Well, I have to say there is nothing that comes to my mind immediately, at least from a diet standpoint, because usually I'm very close at communicating, and I always encourage the athletes, if there is anything in your mind, if there is anything you think about, you just let me know. And they usually also know in off-season settings, especially when the calories are high, I'm also a bit more flexible on the food choices. So, for example, if I have a guy, and I had that he was working at a gym and he didn't have time to get his meal ins, also at peak off season, same guy I talked about with 6,500 calories. And then for me, it is whatever you can get in. I mean, if it's some white bread with a chicken breast on it and you can stuff that in, do it. If it has to be a shake, do it. Not a big friend of liquid nutrition in general, but if it has to be, if it's otherwise a 6 hours break window and then you have to stuff the calories in, do it. And so generally my guys have the guideline, you can be flexible. I mean, now the spring season guys are roughly 16 weeks out for the first competition of the season. If there's someone now who has either a business dinner or maybe the birthday of his wife, then he can also go out and eat a steak reasonably, but eat a steak and exchange a meal also. I don't want to see that 6 weeks out or something like that, but I'm still keeping the guys at least somewhat flexible, and usually that leads to them not having shit ideas, I would say. So I couldn't remember the last time when I had someone really going out of the window with something. For example, I had a guy today, and he told me, I'm sorry, it's just out of the diet. I'm sorry, I have to tell you, I cheated a bit. And so, okay, well, what did you do? It was 50 grams of whey and 40 grams of cream of rice.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm quite comforted by the athletes, but it's good.
I seen it more when it comes to the not enough water and not enough fiber. This is like two things that most often are something that, because they're in a point in the off season that guys are just sticking to the white rice with everything. So it's rice on a breakfast in form of cream of rice, then maybe some rice cakes with some rice. And then at the end of the day, maybe rice flakes, and in between some cream of rice. And fruits are not in the table because they don't have any in a home, and it's compounded. And then they don't know why, but they have digestion problems and stuff like that. So I've always have to try to keep them on the numbers, because this is really important. And for some reason, fiber in bodybuilding are just not so famous.
Yeah, and I mean, the outcome and health data for fibers is indisputable. And so usually you mentioned berries. I like to go very much with berries. I would say most of my guys, I mean, it's a pretty regular setting for me to have maybe the classical oats and whey at breakfast and the cream of rice post-workout. And that's usually for a bigger bodybuilder. Each meal usually contains 150 to 200 grams of berries. So that's quite usual. And I have, for example, in my plans where it's the beef meals or the chicken meals, I always just go with veggies. I have a rough average of macros for veggies, and then I just put in there 200 grams of veggies. Rotate it every day, rotate it every other week, whatever you like, whatever sort you like. I won't tell you, oh, you need 4 different colors of veggies per day. Just get your veggies in and do it with something you're comfortable with before you don't do it at all.
Yeah, but the problem is there is veggies in the plan, but there's not you cannot see the veggies on a plate. So when it comes to the cheat meals, because you says you like to be a little bit more flexible, but a little bit more flexible is what level of flexible? Do you allow for cheat meals in the off season, like weekly, or maybe when it's just an occasion, and maybe you tell them what to eat, or you just don't allow that at all?
I mean, if we are talking off season, I'm really a bit more flexible. I would always, I mean, something I like to emphasize, and doesn't have to be always, but on average, I like to emphasize, don't make it around the food. Make it around your wife, make it around your family, make it around some good friends. And when it's a good time to go out and eat something together, maybe at 1 week there is your wife and then an old friend is coming to visit you. Maybe you go twice per week, but maybe then there's 3 weeks of nothing. Then you don't need to go and have a cheat meal just because you can. So it's for me always to keep it a bit flexible, and it's for me always also to keep control. And that's basically, I would say, I just talked to an athlete yesterday, and he mentioned that from himself, because he was traveling the US for several weeks and was afraid he wanted to try some burgers and so on, and just was afraid to come back too heavy. And he just said, okay, always when I approach the food, I just said to myself, make the decision like a normal human being. And I think that's a very good approach. Just because you eat a burger doesn't mean that you have to stuff yourself with 5,000 calories in the evening. You can prepare for it. And I'm always up if there's an athlete with 6,000 calories and maybe you just need some release, you want to have a burger. Maybe you want to have 3 burgers. Okay, maybe save yourself 2.5, 3K calories for the evening. And then you can do it once. That's not something I want to see every week. But I think also mentally, giving the athletes some freedom, some space in a reasonable manner, and that's roughly my reasonable manner. My reasonable manner is try to meet your calories, at least to a certain degree, with a good estimate. And in the off season, when in doubt, just make sure maybe a bit more rather than a bit less, so that we don't drop. And then it's okay for me, because I want 100% adherence from you when we are dieting. And I think just giving the athlete some freedom, and also and I think that's also a bodybuilder issue, forcing him to have a good time. Maybe go out and eat with your wife. Maybe don't order the food home. Just take some time also for your partner, who is also suffering during context prep. I think that it just builds a bit more resilience by freedom, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to the mini cats, because mini cats are starting to get for a certain period of time, the mini cats were just an additional, and right now is starting to be something like a mandatory in the off season with some coaches. How about you? Do you like to use them if needed, or maybe it is something that you plan throughout the whole off season? So, for example, X amount of weeks of pushing, then you set up the mini cats, then the second phase of pushing or something like that. Hugely sorry for the interruption, guys, but thanks to your comments, subscriptions, and thumbs up, I'm even able to create a podcast like you're watching right now. So if you can, please leave the subscription, comments, and simply a thumbs up. If you wanted to further support me, please use my code. And without further ado, let's get back to the podcast.
I would say I definitely don't plan for it. I definitely don't plan for it. And if necessary, just to do it very aggressive. And the longer I do it, the more aggressive I become, because in the end, I wouldn't say that it's lost time, because in the end, you're on massive supraphysiological doses of hormones. So if you're in a slight or even moderately aggressive calorie deficit, it's still making sure if your performance and if your training planning is good, you will still make some gains. Not off-season gain rate, but still some. I would try to avoid it as long as possible. I mean, that's why I would also like the more conservative rate of gain. And then I would like to keep it slow, and it can be different expressions. I mean, I also had athletes peak off-season, but still quite some off-season to go. I can't see the food anymore and so on. And that's one direction, one rule all my athletes know. the point of where you have to eat against your hunger, this point will happen for everyone. But I don't want to cross the point of stuffing it in, of chewing and drinking it down, of going 50% liquid nutrition. And when that happens, we have to scale back down. Not because there's a cut necessary, but because your digestion needs some release. And more times than not, I have decreased the calories, also sometimes quite notably for a short amount of time, just to give the digestive system some release, and the weight stayed almost the same. Because it wasn't even getting digested actually anymore. It's a bit of bro science, but it's my only assumption I can make.
Yeah, and the snowball effects.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the cardio in the off season, do you like to keep it in throughout the whole off season? Do you like to keep your athletes some sort of with some sort of fitness throughout the whole period, or you think that is just a waste of calories?
Oh no, I'm also a big proponent of all my athletes count their steps. I think it's just equally important. And now, if we look at the steps, it really depends on what is the everyday job of the athlete. Mm-hmm. If I have someone who maybe manual labor, maybe just very active on his feet, some physiotherapists are also that way. Maybe they end up with 50 to 17K steps in the off season just by work. And then I definitely won't let them do any cardio anymore. Usually, if I have an athlete who can, let's say theoretically, choose exactly how much activity he does, I would always keep it at something around 10K steps and 20 minutes of cardio. Maybe the lowest baseline for me would be 10K steps, but that would be really the absolute minimum. Because below that, more times than not, also here digestion is suffering. And when I'm to the maybe 8 to 10K steps, I always tell them, if you have any opportunity to do so, try to do the walks, the 10-minute walks after the meals to support digestion as much as possible. So I think excessively high is not helping, but especially, for example, could even be that if we have the athlete where we can do everything just exactly how we want it, could even be that if blood sugar and insulin sensitivity goes to shit with higher body fat, higher calories, and higher GH, could be that I'm ramping up cardio slightly during the off season just to get that back into check again. And that's then, for example, getting experience with the athlete. What happens when I go from 0 cardio to 20 minutes? How does the blood sugar react? For some, it's a great tool. For some, it does barely anything. And if it does barely anything, okay, let's throw it out again. So there's always, for me, it's also always quite precise data collecting, because that way I can also understand the athlete.
So the next question is PEDS, but you okay with talking about that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what about the PEDS in the off season? What are the like a compound of choice? You don't have to talk about the dosages if you don't want it to, but like the compound of your choice, because nowadays the Primobolan and Masteron even come in a game, and it's something that's starting to be like a basic compound for the off season even. And back in the days, that people are just laughing hearing the Masteron in the off season. They said that it's just a cosmetic drug and stuff like that. So what would be the most anabolic stack for a guy like me to build a shit ton of muscle and jump over the weight class, in your opinion?
I mean, for me, it would be in the first step.
Okay, let's say that I tolerated everything very well. So it's not...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if you tolerate everything very well, I wouldn't do low test. I would do low test only if you don't tolerate it well. But if you can tolerate the test well, and I'm talking about E2 side effects and DHT side effects, and if you can tolerate everything well, then I wouldn't go ultra high test, but it would be definitely a notable and not a side note compound. Because, I mean, there's always very low test just comes into mind for me when there is someone very sensitive. I'm not the ultra high test guy. I will definitely come to the DHT derivatives, no matter if it's drosenolone or Primobolan, But test base, if you're not susceptible to side effects, I would definitely don't keep it ultra low, maybe a bit higher. Let's say, I mean, we need to talk some figures. Let's just build our maybe roughly 1.8 to 2 gram stack, something like that, just to have a number. Then I would say it can be around 600, 700 tests can be out of that. If you're not susceptible to side effects, I would see no issue, and also benefits, because we also have to see at the end, drostanolone, primobolan, it's DHT derivatives, and at the end, the 5-alpha reduction of testosterone to DHT is still the most potent DHT. Of course, also in terms of side effects, but also the DHT is quite potent in terms of strength effect and type 2 muscle fiber recruitment. So there is also some benefits to that. So I would go with a solid test base. I would go with a DHT. I don't know what kind of discussions you're hearing in general also in the outside. I don't think that the differences between drostanolone and primobolan are as accentuated as they are sometimes made to be. I have seen E2 suppressing effects from both and from none, depending on the athlete. So it's quite individual, and I wouldn't make too much of a difference, I would say, to keep it simple here. I would maybe add to your stack. Maybe we have, let's say we have 700 tests. Maybe I would say if we try to make it as potent as possible. Let's say we make 800 milligrams of a DHT derivative. We are at 1.5 right now. Maybe I would like to to add at least some nandrolone. Conservative, very conservative for me. I would say anecdotally, it's also at least for integrity of joints, it's not bad. It's also quite potent at muscle building. So maybe it's 200 to 300 milligrams of NPP. I just like the shorter version. If you know that you can go with it well, you can also go for the Deca. It's a different story. But let's say we are doing 300 milligrams. So that would be really the highest for me. I don't go. Usually my ceiling with NPP is 200. Maybe you can also do 300. It's okay. Then we are at 1.8. And now let's say just at least temporarily, if we have, for example, the 4 sessions per week, I would maybe go with 50 oxymetholone pre-workout, not for the whole off season in stints, but that would be something like that, something around these numbers, something around a number of 8 to 12 units of GH. I think that would be something in a very rough outline, assuming you carry everything well, no side effects. That's something I would go with.
Interesting. The orals in the off-season are rare, but yeah.
They are rare, but I mean, I have a very good friend here in Germany who is also doing a lot of great work, who is basically doing his PhD in muscle physiology, and he's also coming himself a bit more from he's a bridge between the enhanced world and the science. And I went, especially for the oxymetholone, for example, I went through a lot of data with him, or he went through it and presented it to me. And I mean, if you look at the data, then I would say it's the liver toxicity is not as accentuated if you look at the outcome data in the broader studies.
With you says oxymetholone of Anavar, yes?
No, it's oxymetholone. I'm talking anabolone. The data, the outcome data is not as bad as it was always made to be by the word of mouth, for example, and also it has also become quite common, for example, to say that nandrolone is neurodegenerative, and that there is some neurochemical damage done, especially by NPP. If we look at the rodent studies, if we calculate the amounts that the rodents receive to get some neurological damage, we are talking about a human dosage of 5 grams of nandrolone. Okay, I would.
We also have to consider that in bodybuilding we have something that's called like it's like a multi-pharmacy, like a polypharmacy. It's like this is like a huge problem, because we not even have the possibilities to measure what does what. So taking into the consideration that we're taking like 5 different drugs with all the AIs, with all the peptides and stuff, with all the taking, it all is probably going to come to some sort of damage. So I am not really keen on thinking that, for example, EQ are gonna destroy your kidneys, or like I don't know, like tren are gonna destroy your gut or your brain, because that says like the truth is the all anabolics in the super physiological amount is gonna use your system too much, so it's gonna be neurodegenerative
Anyway,
always.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
for example, and that just to get that behind, because I think the oxymetholone will be quite unusual for some because it has been burned. I mean, precondition you have no side effects. If it kills your digestion, of course, throw it out. But that's something maybe also for people to look into. There's a very old essay that tested androgen receptor binding affinity of steroids.
Yeah.
And oxymetholone basically has zero.
Yeah,
And
weaker.
that means there has to be a different pathway that
Yeah. The
most likely cell membrane.
non-reaction of the
Exactly.
yeah, definitely. This is like there was the couple of papers. So when it comes to the action of the most drugs, is not always genomic. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's more non-genomic action that we all think. But do you ever try the combination of Anavar and oxymetholone?
Sometimes in some stage scenarios for some athletes, yes.
Like every other
Yeah.
day you switch on it?
No, not switching, not switching. More
You try it or never?
more with athletes and not switching back and forth. So usually Anavar is something. It's more of a diet drug for me. Diet drug in terms of it does nothing for the diet, but I use it more often in diet scenarios.
Yeah, because if I'm using orals with my guys, it's most often in a short the period of times when we push in, like maybe through the plateaus of the strength. So in that times, I like to rotate
Okay.
the Anapolon and and Oxa Anavar
Yeah.
every other day. That's
Also interesting.
because
Okay.
the Anavar it's not methylated, so it's
Yeah.
not impacted your digestion and it's not going to be hepatotoxicity out there. So you have like a breaks, and so you have like a two pathways of coming out,
Yeah.
and you can keep your health and your lipids even a little bit healthier throughout those 4 to 6 weeks
Yeah.
on it with relatively higher to moderate doses. So it's a really good combination, and it's worth to try it.
It's interesting. I might give it a try. I mean, I think honestly speaking, orals have been doomed way too much. I mean, you have to be careful, especially with methylated compounds. No question about that. You have to be reasonable. You have to do your blood work, but they are not the devil itself. So it's everything has a place at use.
I don't think that there is a single bad thing in this world. It's just a bad use of it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Just to abuse stuff. Like there's the biggest issue here. So when it comes to the GH in the off season, do you think that more is more, or that says that obviously it's going to depend on how the athlete is going to react? Because like I said, if my like blood pressure is going to go to shit, I'm going to have like a cranking heads and like everything's gonna go down south when it comes to my blood sugar and stuff like that. I just can't use a lot, but that says that I can use a lot. So how much is a lot to you?
For me, it would be dependent also on the mass you're carrying and also on the total weight. I think there is definitely a cap. I mean, I just talked about with a friend about the video Larry Wheels did with I think it's Sergei Danilov, the Russian guy who won France.
Maybe I haven't seen it. I think
In the video, it's also 140 kilogram guy, and they're talking about he went up to 100 units of GH per day. And his baseline is 20, and he said he didn't see any difference in terms of effects. I assume there have been a lot of side effects he noticed, but that's something else. there is, for me, I mean, there is definitely a ceiling point because at some point it's just a protective mechanism of the body. The body will upregulate IGF binding proteins just to make sure that it's not overflowing. And to give a number, I would say for a very heavy guy, I mean, for example, that guy was 140 kilograms, quite lean. He was doing 20 units per day. I believe there might be a benefit for that. But that's also then one of the most massive human beings on planet Earth. If you're maybe coming from your heavyweight class and you're maybe off-season 110, 115 kilograms in solid condition, I would say that at the peak 10 to 12 will totally do the job from my perspective.
Great. I was a guy I was using the 10 throughout the whole year, but most I went up but I was in a deficit was 20. And my blood sugar was perfect, like like at 70s, 65, 70s in the morning. So yeah.
I see these guys also in deep off season, 12 units of GH, no issues at all. And I mean, that's also then just genetic predisposition for the sport.
More like I was very regimented with my cardio, with my everything, with eating, with everything. So that was the huge thing. But the study says that like probably the saturation point through the IGF is around 6 to 8 IUs, and if the systemic IGF is as much potent as the same as the muscle IGF, that would says that probably muscle building wise that would be the maximum that we wanted to use it. But obviously GHs are not only the muscle building stuff, because the IGF itself are obviously going to build the muscle, but we also have like the other like aminos that could help us stay leaner and manage a little bit better with the utilization of the fats. So that's the helping point, and the both sides sword as well.
Talk about bringing L-carnitine inject into it.
Yeah,
it's also we didn't talk about it, but it's also almost a must-have compound for me.
Let's talk about it, because I have my guys ask me, can I just swap those carnitine from more GH, because I don't see any from the carnitine, but the GH I could use 2 IU more.
I mean, let's say we have someone who has to decide whether it is from 4 to 6 units of GH or 500 to 750 carnitine, then I would say, okay, all right. But if you have a proper GH dose, I think the carnitine does a lot. And for me, I mean, really the only downside is depends on how often you want to do it, but the daily injection it's not that nice. It's also quite some volume, even if you have a 500 milligram version. But I mean, you have the free fatty oxidation, which goes perfectly hand in hand with the free fatty acid liberation from the GH. You have the androgen receptor upregulation. And I have seen that countless times. I have even seen it with, I would say, TRT plus athletes, just brought in the carnitine, free test, went down. And that's most likely androgen receptor upregulation.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, pain or the discomfort of daily injection versus synergistic effects with GH, with the steroids. And so there's just so much in it from my perspective.
Carnitine is also better like heart health, and also like a healthier mitochondria. So this is like an overall greatest thing on the earth, to be honest. But I get it. It hurts. I get it. It's just a pain in the ass to inject it daily, and sometimes it's just spotless because you don't have any place. And it sucks, but for me, L-carnitine, like injection L-carnitine, is something that most of the guys are just not appreciated enough.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Insulin in the off season. This is like the last PEDS question I would say, because the insulin goes hand in hand with the GH. Some guys think that they need to use insulin when they're using GH. So what's your approach when it comes to the insulin? Do you think, first of all, do you think that insulin is needed to build a shit ton of muscle?
No, definitely not. I mean, from the data we have, I mean, we can clearly say, and I mean, there is tons of studies on that insulin standalone doesn't build muscle. Insulin with GH doesn't build any notable amount of muscle. And I also don't think that, it's also sometimes the paradigm that if you take GH, you have to take insulin. Also from my perspective, definitely no. For me, and I just talked about with my PhD friend about that today, it can become necessary in an off-season setting. Body fat is higher. You're not fat, but body fat is higher. Calories are high. GH is high. It can become necessary. But from my perspective, I would personally try everything to have you on good blood sugar levels without insulin. And if it's then necessary to be really conservative, and you can end up in a scenario where you maybe use just some fast-acting insulin post-workout, or at a maximum of 2 meals per day, and maybe a maximum of adding some basal insulin with it. I don't say that you can't end up there or shouldn't end up there. I would just make it my last resort.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so when it comes to the managing the estrogen with your guys, how high you like to keep them on the estrogen part? Because obviously there's a coaches who says that you have to keep it relatively low. There are guys who thinks that you have to keep it higher because it's, I don't know, like cardioprotective and stuff like that. There are guys who just like to level them up through the ratio of the estrogen, DHT, testosterone. What's the camp are you?
As soon as you have GH in your system, you have to regulate it. Because in the end, we know that with supraphysiological estrogen levels, we see IGF binding proteins increasing. And basically, high estrogen will kill at least part of your GH bioavailability. And so, for me, if it's necessary to manage it, yes. Let's say we don't have GH in the equation, then I would say quite easygoing. So if you don't have GH in, you don't need to manage the IGF binding proteins, especially for a supraphysiological level of GH. You can also run around at 80 or 100 if you don't have any side effects. I'm fine with that. If there's GH in it, needs to be managed. And from a stack perspective, I've been a friend of, you have to avoid the AI at any cost and just do it with the test to DHT ratio. Well, some guys end up at the extreme cases, end up at 150 tests and 1,500 DHT. And that's pure bullshit. If you end up at such a ratio just for the terms of E2 management, the DHT derivatives won't do anything good to your cholesterol profiles, but the AI the same. I think there is no lesser bad, I would say, in these cases. And if there is someone ultra sensitive, I would tend, of course, I wouldn't drive an ultra high test and then ultra high AI, but I wouldn't keep the test so low and the DHT so high just to manage the E2.
Yeah, I've always hated the idea of managing your estrogen with DHT derivative. That was always something that was just sounds not a great idea, to be honest. Because, like you said, there's not so many guys that could keep it in a good ratios to be sufficient for keeping it in a normal levels. Most of the guys need to have like a 220 to 300 tests to almost 3 to 4 times of DHT, and that's a crazy amount. I would rather add something like EQ or anything that's probably going to raise it up your estrone, not estradiol, and keep you a relatively like a better place or something like that. So you answered the question, because the next question was, do you use the AIs? And the answer is yes, if needed.
If necessary, yeah.
Managing the blood pressure, how do you come about that? Because there are guys who are using like a termisartan almost like a
it has become a religion.
yeah, like a religion, and there's guys who are not doing anything and they are thinking that you're just a little bit red. That's fine.
No, for me, it's usually the telmisartan. I mean, also looking at the resting heart rate, it can be a telmisartan and nebivolol. I hope that it's also in English. It can be a combination of both. And so, but I definitely like to use it. And I mean, for me, I mean, I think the prescription is always up until 80, but I think even in the studies that were used or conducted to qualify telmisartan, it went up to 160 milligram. So I have some cases that maybe I've never been at 160 with an athlete, but maybe at 100 or something like that. But usually it's telmisartan, and usually in most of the cases it's between 40 to 80, depending on the resting heart rate. It's maybe 2 to 5 of nebivolol, and then you have a really solid base, I would say, to manage most of it. And if you're then still not getting your blood pressure in the right framework, then you have to maybe do some digging into your routines, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really happy that you says that you're checking your guys' heart rate, because I've struggled always with the check-ins with my guys. I've always have to remember them to just give me the numbers of the HR as well, because this is really important, because we don't want it to thicken up your heart to be useless. You have to manage it, and there are guys who are not even thinking about it. They run 80, 85 on a daily, and it's crazy. It's supposed to be below 70 for sure. Like 65 would be great. Like that will be great.
And I mean, in the end, we are already playing more or less, I would say, a dangerous game. That's fine. Everyone knows it's part of the business, it's part of the risk. But if you take high risks, you also have to be at least a somewhat solid risk manager. But taking high risks and being a shitty risk manager is not a good choice.
Yeah, this is like the worst combo that you can. Okay,
absolutely.
So the last question: I don't know if you are a supported athlete or like a sponsored athlete or not.
Yeah.
But if you are, I would put all the codes of your in the description down below. So if anyone wants to support you, you can use your codes. But I would like you to leave us with your like a basic supplements regime for your guys to keep them on like a basic health level. Obviously it's going to be because there are guys who need more or less, but the basics are always the basics. So what are your basics?
Basics are ultra simple for me. It's creatine, of course. It's D3 plus K2 supplement. It's omega 3 and rather more than less omega 3. It's magnesium. It's for me getting into, and that's basically with these four. If you don't have any other money, go with it, and I'm happy. Above that, what comes to mind first? Netokinase, ashwagandha, melatonin, also as a quite potent antioxidant. That would be somewhat of the next realm. I mean, zinc if necessary, of course, multivitamin if necessary, but that's really the forefront. And for the health subs, I would just go by blood work if necessary. But also, if your blood work is total shit, then there's a reason why they are called supplements and not medicaments. So you can try them. I'm also a proponent, if you have something to manage, if you have lipids as an issue, you can try your citrus bergamot if you have the money and go with it. But might be that you need something more potent at a later point in time. But that would be really the basic routine, and then everything else is demand driven. If you stack up another sleep supplement, for example, for myself, from birth right away, I have very light sleep. So for me, it's then always this melatonin, it's an ashwagandha supplement, plus it's also then other stuff, no medicaments, but also the whole supplement range just to get me sleeping a bit more deep. If you're sleeping like a 10 out of 10, don't take anything. So it's always coming from there. It's very demand driven.
Great. So, Fabian, thank you so much for your time for today. Like we talked before, I hit the record. We probably next year, because it's like the end of the year right now. So next year, probably if you find the time, we will do the second part. So guys, if you wanted to see Fabian again, just please leave the comments down below, and I will try to do my best to make him come back.
We will manage that for sure. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Dawid. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And for everyone who sticks us to the end of this podcast, every links you find in the description down below. Keep remember to hit the subscription button, the notification bell, and if you can, share with your friends that's bodybuilding fanatic as well. Thank you, and see you guys again in the next one.
Bye.